Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
I have heard from other people that I seem different after I read the Bible 4 times last year. And the first time when I read it in 2 months for the first time. I've read the Bible I don't know how many times, like, at least once a year for a really long time.
Wow.
But actually I saw that I don't know if you may have been the reason that I decided to read it in 2 months, because you did that,
beat
right?
me bad. You almost did it in half the time. I did it in 3.5 months.
Yeah, I did it.
You
in
read
2
the
months.
entire Bible through in 2 months?
I did, and it was wild.
That's so frustrating to me.
You should do it. It's great.
You're the first person to know that beat me at 3.5 months. I'm sure lots of people have done it in much shorter time. And I will say, for the record, and I'm not proud of this, but when I did it in 3.5 months, that was the first time I read the Bible through front to back without deviating, or you know what I mean? So I do not read the Bible through once per year. I want to start. But
I can't recommend it highly enough. And I feel like the truncated time is shocking.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, it draws connections that you just
Yes.
don't see when you're just reading
Yes.
bits and pieces here and there.
I totally agree. That was one of the things that stood out to me the most when I read it through in 3.5 months, was how the whole Bible, I viewed it for the first time in this kind of way. I viewed it as a single book as opposed to, 66 different books that are kind of compiled together. And it really is. Like, it is a book. And then there's books within, but yeah, that really stood out to me too. Was I did not see that coming, was how different themes would stand out from reading it through in a short amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
What were some of the themes that stood out to you? What did you pick up
I mean,
on
just
from reading
Jesus
it so quick?
existing all the way through, is just wild. Like, that story is so clear all the time, just from start to finish. And, I've read it a lot of times, so it's not like there was something, totally brand new in there. But just, I think the thing that I got out of it the most was that it required sacrifice. And that's been something I've been chasing since. And which is why I ended up reading it another 3 times that year.
Wow.
Was because, like, I couldn't do other things to make that happen. And it wasn't a huge sacrifice. I mean, it's like, 45 minutes of reading a day really is all it takes. Which just isn't
to
a
read
lot.
it through in 1 year or
in 2 months.
In
I
2
think
months?
I think it was like 45 minutes a day. I'm a quick reader,
Okay.
but not crazy quick. I'm not Tim Ferriss quick or anything.
Yeah.
But it was enough that it's like, you can't watch that show. You have to get up early.
Right.
Like, there's a few things that for me to have a work and do other stuff, like,
Yes.
I needed to get up a little earlier. I needed to say no to some things.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like that's the thing that just, like, was so transformational about doing it in the couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I felt more connected than I have, like, maybe ever felt in my life, because I don't know, I was having these thoughts of, like, pray for this person, pray for that person. And you're finding out that they needed you to pray for them at that time. And
Okay.
that kind of just, like, connectivity. And then I'm like, okay, well, I just got to keep reading the Bible this fast over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's like, it hasn't been the same. And now this year, my goal is to try to find a way to do a better job at prayer and meditation. So I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that. I am planning on reading the Bible 3 times this year. I'm a little behind on my first read because things have been so out of whack. But yeah, just
How
trying
fast
to dig
do you
in.
read? Like, is there a words per minute or something?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's like 45 to an hour is what I had to spend to do the 2 months.
Man, I feel like you must read pretty fast. I never learned to speed read or to read. I read relatively slow because I either need to, like, soak in it and, like, really get it and to be interested and follow the storyline, even with any book. Or if I get to skimming, I feel like I don't catch it, and then I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Then I skim even quicker. Next thing you know, I'm really not getting it. Like, I don't. So I'd love to be able to read a little quicker. I don't have to double it, but just a little quicker. Do you kind of cut out the edges of the pages? I know Tim Ferriss does that.
I have tried to do some of that stuff. It's so hard for me. I have to think so hard about, like, not like turning my eyes back and forth and all that stuff, that it's like not fun. I do like reading the columns. Like I have a bunch of different Bibles, different translations, and I've been kind of like trying to read different translations and stuff. And it's definitely a lot easier for me to read through it if it's the columns. Like not all Bibles work that way, but that helps because you don't have to. There's no losing your place. And then I like to use a card.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because that also keeps you from like missing your sentence start and stuff like that. So I usually have like a little card and I'm rolling through it. But then also like I'm familiar with it. You know, there's not so I'm not missing things like I would if it was like a brand new book.
Right. Yep. So when you're reading the Bible every day, or if you were to read the Bible right now, not for us, but you're just going to read it, you're going to use a card to track where you're at? Do you do that with a regular book too? With other books?
No.
Or just the Bible?
Just the Bible.
Interesting.
I probably should do it with a regular book.
Yeah.
But if I'm reading just like, because I'm just like trying to read, then it doesn't really, you know, I don't have any, to have that, the time frame limitation is really what pushed me to do the different things that I need to do to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that, with the thought process of reading it through in a relatively short amount of time. You do pick up on that all of history points to Jesus Christ, and the Bible points to Jesus Christ too. So for me personally, I've shifted sort of. I grew up in a more dispensational kind of view, which is like, you know, God's got a plan for this section of time, and God's got a plan for this section of time, and then this section of time is different, and then, you know, that type of thing. And reading the Bible through in 3.5 months was instrumental in shifting me over a little bit more towards a covenantal view, which is like God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And God has one people, one plan, one purpose. And like, for example, like with everything pointing to Christ, you know, you can read the story of Adam and Eve and think, interesting story. Okay, the first humans, that's fascinating. Here was Adam and here was his wife. And then there was this tree of knowledge, and there was an apple or whatever was on the fruit on the tree, and they ate it, and man, they shouldn't have. And then there was separation from God, and, you know, and then God kind of had to change his plan, and he comes up with something to make it right. You know, isn't that a fascinating story? And the lesson is, you know, when you're tempted, don't cave. Well, part of that's true. You know, it's not necessarily untrue. It's just not the point of the story. You know, I mean, what you have here is you have sort of a Christ figure in that Adam was the head of the human race. And that head of the human race failed us. So like we needed another head of the human race, Jesus Christ. And so I agree, like when you read it through quickly, you can't help but notice that Jesus Christ is the focal point of the entire book, you know, cover to cover.
But you see so much how necessary he is too, like reading through Leviticus and everything. That's a tough read, but you have this like horrible repetition of, okay, get up and sacrifice and do this stuff and try to like, you know, cleanse these sins over and over again. And they are not, it's an imperfect sacrifice. You know, it's incomplete.
Yes.
And you have to have this like, you know, these priests interceding for you, and they're not perfect. So they just have to keep doing this. It's this, you know, kind of like horrible cycle that you're trapped in. And, you know, the world that we live in today, post Jesus coming and dying, is like so different than what is described like before that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You just see like the fulfillment, you know, and the completion to a different degree, I think, when you zoom through it.